Okay, settle in. I want you to imagine something. Not a hypothetical, not a distant sci-fi scenario, but right now, this exact second. What if, from the moment you were born gulping your first lungful of air, scrambling to figure out what the blurry light and strange sounds even were, your brain never, ever slowed down its rate of learning? What if that frantic, insatiable, turbocharged sponging up of the entire world just stayed that way for your entire life? Think about that for a second. I mean, really think. Because we're not talking about just being a really fast learner. We're talking about a fundamental rewrite of the most basic human experience there is, growing up. All right, let's start at the beginning. The moment, the first domino. The scene, a delivery room, ordinary in every way except one. The newborn is placed gently on their parent's chest. There's the crying, the warmth, the overwhelming flood of new sensations. But then the tiny head shifts, the unfocused eyes. They don't just wander, they dart, they study. The blurry shapes of faces, the bright light, the strange sounds of voices and machines. Each one isn't just registered, it's analyzed. The baby's crying subsides into a quiet, observant silence that feels unervingly alert. That's the moment. That's the first sign that the rulebook has been shredded. The rule we never thought to question, that a mind needs time to unfold, simply ceases to exist. Unfolding is now instantaneous. The first few months are a tsunami of what they. Milestones aren't just smashed, they're rendered meaningless. Sitting up happens in weeks, crawling, maybe a month, and it looks more like a deliberate, efficient reconnaissance than a baby's clumsy exploration. Language doesn't develop, it erupts. First words aren't mama or dada at 1 year. They're perfectly clear, need-based statements at 3 or 4 months. Cold, bright, again. By the time a child would normally be taking first steps, they're asking complex why questions about gravity, emotions, or where the sun goes at night. The direct consequence? Parenting as we know it collapses overnight. You're not caring for a helpless infant. You're negotiating with a preternaturally observant, emotionally volatile mini-philosopher who can out-argue you on sleep schedules by their first birthday. This bleeds into the second domino, education. The entire system, built on the assumption of slow, graded learning, becomes a bizarre anachronism. Imagine a kindergarten teacher trying to conduct circle time. One kid is mentally designing a more efficient playground structure based on physics principles. Another is quietly composing a haiku in Japanese, a language they absorbed from a cartoon last week. School becomes less about teaching and more about providing raw materials and getting out of the way. Curriculums shatter. The concept of being behind vanishes, replaced by a dizzying, uneven landscape of hyper-specialized interests blooming in tiny bodies. But okay, that's the kids. The real mind-bender is that this learning velocity isn't a childhood phase. It's the default setting for life. So what happens to us, the adults living in this world? Your 20s and 30s become unrecognizable, mastering a complex skill or an entire academic discipline. That's a project you might pick up for a season. You want to learn advanced violin, quantum mechanics, and fluent Mandarin? Give yourself a year, maybe less. You'll be a concert-level virtuoso theorist polyglot. Careers become obsolete. The idea of doing one job for 40 years is laughable, like deciding to only ever eat one flavor of ice cream for the rest of your life when you have a universe of flavors at your fingertips. People have eras. You might be a celebrated architect for 5 years, revolutionize the field, get bored, and then dive into deep-sea marine biology for the next 3. Your resume isn't a ladder. It's a sprawling, interconnected galaxy of mastered domains. Now, you might be thinking, Wow, that sounds amazing. Sign me up. And yeah, on the surface, it's the ultimate triumph of human potential. But here's where the cracks start to show. The first big one is, well, your body. Think about it. The human brain, even in its normal state, is an energy hog. It uses about 20% of your body's resources. Now imagine that brain is running at permanent infant learning speed. That's a metabolic furnace. The calorie demand would be astronomical. People in this world would probably need to eat constantly high-energy, nutrient-dense food just to fuel their thoughts. Physical appearance might shift over generations. Not necessarily giant heads, but maybe leaner, more energy-efficient bodies, with a focus on robust cardiovascular systems to pump all that fuel and oxygen to the cranium. Athletics for sport might fade. Athletics for survival to sustain the brain might become paramount. You'd see a world of ultra-focused intellectuals who also happen to be obsessive biohackers and endurance athletes, just to keep their hardware from crashing. And then there's the psychology. This is the heavy part. Imagine the sheer weight of a mind that learns that fast. It doesn't just learn the good stuff. It learns everything. Every subtle social slight is analyzed and reanalyzed with devastating clarity. Every fear, every anxiety, every dark thought can be explored, rationalized, and deepened in a matter of hours. Boredom isn't just an annoyance. It becomes a profound existential crisis. Your brain, built for constant, high-speed input, would scream in the silence. We'd have to invent entirely new forms of hypercomplex art, philosophy, and entertainment just to keep our own minds from spiraling into despair. Meditation wouldn't be a wellness practice. It would be a critical survival skill to prevent mental meltdown, which leads to the darkest ripple: ideology and conflict. Hate, prejudice, conspiracy theories, these are learned, right? In our world, it often takes time, exposure, repetition. In this world, a brilliant, impressionable 12-year-old could encounter a compelling yet toxic ideology and, within days, not just believe it but master its entire logical framework, internalize its dogma, and become its most eloquent and dangerous advocate. Social divisions wouldn't be gaps. They'd be sheer cliffs between entirely different, hyper-rationalized realities. Wars wouldn't be fought just with weapons, but with ideas so sharp and intricately constructed they could dismantle an opposing culture from the inside out. It's a terrifying thought. That got heavy. You know what's a weird, lighter question in all this? Dating. Romance. Imagine trying to find a partner when both of you are essentially shape-shifting mental entities, reinventing yourselves every few years. So, what are you into? Well, last year I was pioneering fusion lattice design, but this month I'm utterly consumed by 14th century French tapestry restoration and its philosophical implications. You talk about keeping things fresh or impossibly difficult. Now fast forward. The 90-year-old in this world. They are not old. Not in the way we think. They are a convergence point. Picture a person who has lived not one long life, but dozens of the most intense, brilliant, masterful lives you can imagine, all stacked inside one skull. Their knowledge isn't linear. It's a dense, hyper-connected web where marine biology informs their understanding of music theory, which connects to an insight about social structures. A conversation with them wouldn't be a chat. It would be a journey through 100 different fields, leaping across connections invisible to you. They might seem serene, but it's the serenity of a vast, deep ocean of understanding. Or they might seem distant because the concerns of a single lifetime, a single identity, are quaint to them. They've been so many people. So what's the ultimate outcome? The new normal? Humanity as a shared experience kind of dissolves. The common ground of a slow childhood, of shared struggles to learn, of growing old together at the same pace. That's gone. We become a species of brilliant, lonely galaxies, each orbiting our own ever-expanding universe of knowledge. We might solve problems we can't even conceive of today, disease, energy, maybe even the nature of consciousness itself. But we might lose something irreplaceable in the process. The simple, slow, mutual confusion of being human together. The beauty of not understanding everything all at once. The scar this world bears isn't physical. It's a quiet, pervasive nostalgia for a slowness no one alive can remember. A longing for a time when a mystery could linger, when mastery felt earned, and when growing up was a journey you took with others, not a solo launch into the intellectual stratosphere. So the final, lingering question isn't really about whether you could keep up. It's something more profound and maybe more haunting. If you had the choice, not for yourself, but for the next generation, would you press the button? Would you give them that never-slowing mind, knowing the breathtaking universe of thought it unlocks, but also knowing the relentless hunger, the potential loneliness, and the loss of a shared, slow-paced humanity that comes with it? What's the trade-off really worth? I'll leave you to chew on that. Let me know down in the comments what you think. Would you press the button?